Hey y'all, how we doing tonight? Robbie Falk here, live from my bedroom. We're getting ready for a good talk tonight here on Talkin Dawgs. As usual, you guys can get your questions and comments in that box on the right side over there. Sorry about that. We got the little video up there. Oh, I forgot to mute it. My bad. Um, get your questions and comments in on that right side, and we'll talk about that here shortly. I'm going to give a brief little synopsis of what's happened this week for Mississippi State, like I always do, and then we'll get into some of your questions and any kind of conversation that you guys want to have. First of all, if you do not know much about me, I'm Robbie Falk. I work for 247 Sports, part of the CBS Sports Network, and also the Starkville Daily News. I cover Mississippi State. And I cover high school sports in the Starkville Daily News area, just for a few of those that might not know what you're watching right now. But for those that do, thank you for coming back for another Talking Dogs chat. We like to do these about once a week, talk Mississippi State sports, get some conversation going, discuss some things with you guys, and bounce some things off of you guys as we go, things like that. So, for Mississippi State, the past week, it's been very eventful. It's been some good, it's been some bad. There's been some promising things, and there's been some very disturbing things for State fans to follow. First and foremost, we'll start with the basketball team. The basketball team, both men's and the women's, made the NCAA tournament in the play-in game. Both had solid showings in that first ball game. The men played Pittsburgh in the first game. We're in position to win that ball game in the final seconds, and saw a wide open three-pointer from Shaq Moore go off the rim, and then a tip in by DJ Jeffries was not able to fall. Mississippi State lost that first four match with Pittsburgh, and then Pittsburgh went on to beat Iowa State in the first round. So that would have been a favorable matchup, I think, for Mississippi State. Were they able to advance? It was very apropos for the Bulldogs to go down like that. You have a three-point shot wide open with a chance to win the ball game, and this team has just struggled mightily shooting the three-pointer all year and really shooting from anywhere on the floor, especially wide open. They just haven't been able to make those shots this year. Shaq Moore wasn't able to see it fall in, but there were a lot of things that went wrong in that game for the Bulldogs, and it's not fair to blame Shaq Moore or DJ Jeffries for the tip in. There were several situations that Mississippi State could have taken care of business, and they lose that ball game by 1 point. So, tough loss, but I think the best is ahead for Chris Jans and this team in the coming months. If you'll be following Paul Jones on 247, he will keep you updated as to how that roster starts to transpire for the Bulldogs, and it'll be some fun times, I think, next year for Mississippi State. For the women, Sam Purcell, I don't know what the expectations were for fans going into the NCAA tournament after the SEC tournament loss to Texas A&M. For myself, I didn't know what to expect. This team's been kind of up and down all year. I thought that if they were playing to their fullest potential, that was a team that could make the Sweet 16. I would not have been shocked in the least. They get in the play-in game as well. They're playing a very good Illinois team, a team that I thought shouldn't have been in the play-in game. And State was able to really handle them in the second half. I thought it was complete domination in the second half for the Bulldogs to pull away and ultimately just dominate that game. Jessica Carter had 22 points, 9 rebounds, and the defense was stellar. State dominated in the post. That was a big win. Then you go into that first round game against a team that's top 5 in the country in three-point shooting in Creighton, a team that a year ago made a run in the NCAA tournament, and State just really kind of ran them out too. I mean, 11 of 19 from three-point range. State turned the tables on Creighton and were really just incredible from the field that night. And that's a team that likes to shoot the three-point shot. They decided to kind of clog up the lane and keep Jessica Carter from beating them, and State just absolutely just obliterated them from outside. And also 18 of 20, I think, from the free throw line. So the Bulldogs had probably their best offensive game of the year, all things considered. Yesterday, they played in the NCAA tournament second round against Notre Dame, the host team in that region, and the Bulldogs took them to the wire. I thought great effort from Mississippi State. You could tell they were a little tired, but they came up short, losing that game by 5 points, just shy of making the Sweet 16. Unbelievable season in year one for Sam Purcell. 22 wins, a second-round NCAA tournament trip, won two ball games in the NCAA tournament, winningest coach in Mississippi State history in his first year, top 8 all time in SEC history since the SEC started sanctioning women's basketball. So really the best is ahead for that team, I think, as well. So some good things and some bad things. Mississippi State really struggled this past weekend in baseball, going to Lexington, getting swept in 3 ball games. We're going to discuss that pretty thoroughly as we go on this show, but it was really just a disaster in every single phase for the Bulldogs. They couldn't pitch, they couldn't hit consistently. Defensively, they really struggled. You know, Chris Lemonis seems to be kind of at a loss right now with what's happening. He doesn't really, he can't really put his finger on, you know, how all these things are transpiring. I can't really do it either, and especially not being in the clubhouse with those guys, being at practice. I don't really know where it all starts. You know, a lot of people contend that it's coaching, and it very well could be. I mean, these guys are in charge of these players, and it's up to them to get them playing up to speed. But a lot of that could fall on the players as well. They're not performing up to expectations. I don't know who to blame. I think there's just a lot of blame to go around, and right now, a lot of things need to get fixed for this team to be competitive in the SEC because it's just not a good product. They're not playing good defense. They're not pitching it well at all. This has been one of the worst starts from a team I can imagine as far as throwing strikes. And what's strange is this team is one of the best in the SEC in striking guys out, but they're walking guys more than anybody in the SEC as well. They're on pace to set a record for walks in a single season. It's just not good right now for the Bulldogs. 14 straight SEC losses, which is a school record in counting, and they have a top 5 team coming to Starkville this weekend. A lot of things need to change this weekend before people can really get back on board, because right now, judging by the message board, judging by Twitter, which, you know, a lot of coaches, a lot of players don't pay attention to that, but you know they hear the noise. People are not happy with the current product, and, you know, Chris Lemonis is the guy that's going to have to answer for that. He's got to find a way to get this team back on track. I think the talent is there, but there's just a lot of things that have to happen for this team to really get back on track in SEC play. All right, so again, if you have any questions, any comments, throw them in that chat over there. We will discuss whatever you guys want to. Doesn't even have to be baseball or basketball, Mississippi State related. Just throw your questions in there and we'll talk about it. We'll start with Sultan of SWAT 33. He wants to start off with something light. Could you explain the process of how someone would go about submitting a question to the Rumblings, and what does it mean to lock it up? Okay, so a lot of people have asked this question, and I understand Brian is a very difficult person. Brian Haydad, my co-host on Thunder and Lightning, our podcast. It's a Mississippi State podcast. You can find that anywhere you listen to podcasts. But Brian's a very difficult person. He doesn't like to wade through a lot of people arguing or commenting in other people's questions, so he wants you to lock your questions in. So when you want to get your questions asked on this show, it's asked, we do this show every Tuesday, so you can ask a question to Brian Haydad and myself. You tweet at both of us, so include both of our handles on Twitter, and then there's an option under the tweet. It's a little globe, I think. You click on that, and it gives you the option of who can reply to your tweet. You want to click the one that says only people that you mention or something like that, and that's how you submit a question to the Rumblings. And he will answer that question on Tuesday, so there you go. Also, how did you like Lexington in the park? I had a good time, other than the fact that it was just freezing cold out there. It was 15 to 20 mile an hour winds. It was freezing temperatures in all 3 ball games. Sunday was actually the worst temperatures. It was a beautiful day. The sun was out, but it was 28 degrees, I think, on Sunday. I left Sunday morning. I didn't get a chance to cover that game. I had some guys with me. We had to get back. But, I mean, it was just brutal. Friday night was terrible from a weather standpoint. Saturday wasn't great either, but was a little better. And then Sunday was really cold. I mean, when we got there on Thursday night, it wasn't bad. It was a light jacket, and it just wasn't terrible weather. And then Friday morning, it starts raining, and it just got really, really cold. So that was the downfall of it. The park is not huge, but it's nice amenities. They have some good club levels sections. The press box I love. It's a very accessible press box. It's got behind the plate views. I love it. It's way better than Mississippi State's press box. But the park itself, nothing real special. There wasn't a ton of people there. I would say at most maybe like 300 people at the games, and it was mostly State fans. But it was a fun weekend. I loved Kentucky, and Lexington was it really kind of blew my mind how good of a city it was. I really enjoyed it. Really cool place. Do you see State going down a similar route that Mizzou did in extending Jan's indoor Purcell? I do. I think that both coaches are probably going to get extensions. They'll probably get a raise, and their staffs probably will get a raise as well. So, I think in the coming weeks you'll see those coaches get a little more compensation. I think both are probably going to have some bonuses in their contract from making the NCAA tournament, getting the 20 wins or whatever. I can't remember what their contracts state, but they should be well compensated. Elijah Sykes, what has been the biggest disappointment of the baseball team thus far? That's a good question. I think the biggest disappointment has just been the fact that they haven't been able to turn it around yet. I think that this team in some ways is better than last year, but in some ways they're not. I mean, I think the talent level is greater this year, and there was not a time last year where that team won 7 games in a row. So I mean, they've been able to string some things together better than that team, but it's just it's very troubling to see that they're not able to consistently throw strikes with just about whoever they put in the game. Even the guys that have been their best strike throwers have walked guys or thrown wild pitches. There's some kind of disconnect happening there with Scott Foxhall and the players. I don't know what it is, but something's wrong, and that's probably been the most troubling thing, the most disappointing thing is it's just the overall deal that they just haven't been able to get back on track. If you had to find a bright spot about this team, what would it be? It would probably be the fact that there's a lot of really talented newcomers on this team. The freshmen are really talented. The transfers are pretty good. I like the roster. It's just I don't know what's happening. They can't put it all together. Bryce Hall, do you think Lamonis and Foxhall just aren't adjusting correctly to the current way baseball is being played? For example, how umpires are being trained? Could be. I mean, it could. I was having that conversation with somebody the other day. Maybe they're, are they nibbling a little bit with the pitchers? Is the goal to kind of hit the outside corner or the inside corner and try to be precise with the pitches? If that's the case, then that's probably a part of the problem. Is the umpire's zone has tightened up tremendously around college baseball this year, and if the goal is to nibble around those spots and guys aren't taking those pitches, then the whole philosophy of the staff is kind of struggling right now. So I don't know. I don't know what what their plan is or what they're doing behind the scenes, but that's just one theory I guess you could throw out there. Matthew Anthony, is this one of the deepest years for SEC baseball with Kentucky, South Carolina, Missouri starting so strong? Could be. I think we're starting to see things even out a little bit with NIL, with the transfer portal, things like that. I think the SEC is becoming a destination for a lot of guys, and maybe guys that State, LSU, Ole Miss, A&M, some of the top teams in the SEC can't take. Those other teams are able to kind of come in, and also they're recruiting at a better level, I think. But yeah, I've been a little surprised with A&M and Missouri and Kentucky so far. But I know Nick Mingione is a really good coach, and he's had some good teams there. And I think this team especially is an older team, and I think that means a lot when you have a team that's filled with a lot of veteran players. I think that's what you're seeing here is Kentucky's got a bunch of guys that have played a lot of baseball, and they're really coming through for them right now. But yeah, it's been a really deep looking conference so far. Oh, what do we got? Sultan of Swat, I went to one of the games this weekend and sat to where me and my son could see on the dugout, and aside from it being cold, the energy in the dugout looked all right. Hard to pinpoint issues. Yeah, Chris Lamonis and I think most of us thought that things were going to be pretty good this weekend. They had been playing good baseball. They had a good step forward on the pitching mound. They had some really good games stringing together defensively. Offense looked good. It just, for whatever reason, it just didn't happen this weekend. And, maybe it's just a fluke. Maybe we're all overreacting a little bit. Maybe it was just a bad weekend. It was cold. It was windy. Which, by the way, Kentucky should not host SEC games in the first 2 weeks of the schedule, I don't think. The weather's like that a lot in early March and mid-March. Maybe they should wait a little bit before they host some of these games because that was brutal conditions. Nobody should have been playing in that. And I'm not using that as an excuse, but it could be an issue for state. Jerangelo Sanja I don't think he's ever pitched in that kind of weather, and it looked like that in the first inning. He really struggled. But I don't know what the problems were there. And Shane, right on cue, there's your answer on the weather. Could have very well been a problem. I don't think they're going to play any better in that kind of weather. I didn't think they were going to play well at all. So I do think it affected them in some form or fashion. Wyatt Funderburk, any incoming freshmen on either basketball team that could make an impact next year? Feels like at least Jans will have to rely heavily on the portal. Could be. Let's see. On the men's side, I don't know if a true freshman does, but I do think two JUCO guys will. Trey Fort and Jaquan Scott, I'm high on both of those guys. I think they're going to impact things very early for the Bulldogs next year. And then for the women, Jasmine Brown's a possibility. I think Miracle Shepherd at point guard could very well do it. Both of those girls, very tough, physical guards. I think that they're going to play a factor for Mississippi State next year. Richard Neal, Robbie, if both Tolu and Jessica leave, will both programs see a dip in wins? If both of them leave, they really need to go hit the portal for an impact center. You got to have an impact center no matter what. If they don't have that kind of player, then yes, I think it's going to be a struggle for those two teams. They need an impact center out there. And the best thing to do is just keep them both and work on that for the next year. Maybe get somebody out of the portal that can learn behind Tolu and Jessica or something like that. But I definitely think that you need to have either or. You either need those two players to return or you need to go get a standout impact portal center. Tom T., why did Purcell's last two plays go deep inside when that was not available for most of the game? The FSU transfer was hot. I don't know. Probably trying to get a foul and try to get some points at the line. I don't know. I mean, they still were struggling from three-point range. I can't really remember what happened down the stretch, to be honest with you. But offense was definitely hard to come by for the Bulldogs. Kobe Walker, who do you think is coming back for Mississippi State in basketball? It's hard to say right now. And for the men, it looks like most of the roster most of the major contributors should be returning. The big question marks are DJ Jeffries and Tolu Smith. Deshaun Davis is up in the air, but I think that he's probably going to stay. So, we'll see how that happens over the next few weeks. Probably going to be a little later on Tolu. I imagine he's going to try to get some feedback from the NBA before he makes a decision. Sultan, players are trying to warm their bats and gloves by the heater. So I agree with the date suggestion. Yeah, it was, I'm telling you, man, that the weather was absolutely brutal. I was in the press box, so I didn't have to worry about that much. But looking at it in the stands and seeing my buddies out there, I felt really bad for you guys. Adam Carnathan, off topic, I heard you say a quote from Robin Hood Men in Tights on Thunder and Lightning a while back. What's your favorite Mel Brooks movie? That's probably it. Spaceballs is great. Blazing Saddles is unbelievable. Couldn't make that show today, but it's so good. Um, that's probably my top three. I'm trying to think of another one that I would put in there. That's probably my favorites. Robin Hood Men in Tights is number one for me. Richard, was the earliest we can see Cade, Pico, and Nixon play? Man, you were asking the wrong guy. I'm right there with y'all. We just don't know. I mean, Chris will not discuss injuries. I have no clue what's going on with them. I didn't really look hard for those guys this weekend, but I saw Pico when I was waiting for interviews on Saturday, and he was walking around fine. I have no clue what's going on with those guys, but they've got to get more players in there that can help them. They got to get more pitching. Tom T, on a scale from 1 to 10, how do you feel about the football team going forward? Probably a 6 right now. I mean, I feel okay. I feel solid about them. I don't feel great, but I feel solid. I just want to see how things transpire with the offense a little bit. I think the defense is going to be good. The safety position is the big question mark. How's Mississippi State going to be doing in the back end? But as far as the offense, it's just a wait and see. We haven't seen enough of Kevin Barbay. I think that the skill players are there for him. I think the offense will be good, but we just have to kind of wait it out. Elijah, with Tolu possibly leaving and with McNair not being as good as a scorer, do you think the offense will transition to more guard prominent? Again, just need to get Tolu back. I think a well balanced team is one that has a center that can draw attention from opposing defenses and a bunch of guards that can shoot it or threats to drive. And that's what Mississippi State needs. They need Tolu back. They need to expand the offense to be able to hit 3-point shots. So hopefully Tolu comes back and you get what you need from these newcomers. 44 MSU, Drangelo, Cade, Dome, best possible rotation. Probably, yeah. If Cade's healthy and Aaron Nixon's healthy, that would probably be. I would probably move Dome to Saturday and Cade on Sunday. In that case, Michael Starr, I saw where Vandy has 3 left-handed pitchers starting this weekend, and with our struggles hitting left-handed pitchers, do you think we get run ruled this weekend? If so, once or multiple times? Hopefully not. Hopefully the offense is able to kind of keep you in the ball game. Hopefully pitching comes out and gives you some good starts. Last couple of weeks before Kentucky, you got some good starts from your starting pitchers. You need 5 or 6 innings from those guys. You need to keep teams down to about 2 runs and give yourself a chance. If you come out and you don't compete, you start walking guys, then you're in trouble. And if you start walking guys against Vanderbilt, then you're screwed. I mean, that's what Tim Corbin does. He runs all over opposing defenses, and State has not been able to throw guys out on the base pass. Luke Hancock and Ross Highfield struggled with that. And, a lot of that, too, might be on the pitchers not getting the ball to the plate in time. There's just some issues holding runners, and State cannot give free passes this weekend against Vanderbilt, or it's going to be a very quick and painless, or it probably will be painful for most of us, but for Mississippi State, it'll be pretty painless because it'll be pretty quick. It'll be run rule a couple of times. Hopefully that doesn't happen. Hopefully the offense comes out and has a good approach against these lefties, and the pitching and defense plays sharp, and you give yourself a chance. You don't want to just start free falling here. You got to be able to stop the bleeding and get some big wins. All right, any more questions? Any more questions? Last call. All right. Well, we'll get out of here relatively quick tonight. This week, Arkansas State, Mississippi State baseball coming up. We will have obviously spring football practice. Richard, is Harmon transitioning tight end? He is. He's doing a good job out there. I think he fits in well there. State has a few guys at tight end this spring, and Jorquarius Spivey's been at practice. He can't participate in practice, but he's been watching, so that'll be a good addition for Mississippi State along with Rylan Godey coming in too. So we'll get a chance to see a little bit of practice this week again, and then we'll have interviews on Tuesday, of course. So we'll have full coverage of that. You guys need to check that out over on 247. Should be some good notes that we get from coaches and players this week. If you aren't already, please subscribe to this channel. We have this Talkin' Dawgs sessions. We have post-game and media press coverage on this channel. Sorry, I'm hungry right now. I'm sorry. But check that out. Check out Thunder and Lightning. Our podcast every day comes out every day. You can listen to it late at night or early in the mornings. We usually throw those up at nighttime. So we have some good coverage of Mississippi State sports there. Check out the Starkville Daily News if you're in Starkville. We'd appreciate your support there as well. And check out us on Gene's page at 247sports.com for all your Mississippi State coverage. All right, guys, I appreciate you guys as always. Thanks for stopping in. Again, subscribe to the channel if you don't already, and we will talk to you again probably next week for another Talkin' Dawgs. All right, guys.